Okay. So the topic for our video today was a really popular question, a lot of really popular questions that came through when we asked on our various Facebook page. And the topic was what not to do and what not to say when you are talking to or interacting with a person that has a physical disability. We are focusing today on physical disabilities because that's the population that we're talking to in this video. We hope to later have some videos with people that have intellectual disabilities, but today we are talking with 3 people who specifically have physical disabilities and they are wheelchair users. So that is the focus of these questions. And I will just dive right in. First question is a 3-part question. So I'll break it down. The first part is it offensive or is it appreciated to hold the door for a person who's using a wheelchair? And the follow-up was sort of wondering, is it a threat to that person's independence? And is there a way to help a person in a wheelchair without being patronizing? Because that's not the goal. So who wants to tackle that first?
I'll go first. For me, I always appreciate kindness. You know, I personally am not offensive or sensitive to someone offering to help, and that's just me. You know, I want to be independent and I strive to be independent, but not at the, I don't want to make anybody feel bad for offering to help. I don't want to punish someone for being kind. I just simply politely tell people that I have it. But I want to make sure I thank them afterwards. I said, thanks, but you know, I can do this. And sometimes on a day that I'm feeling well, and I'm approaching a door with someone that doesn't have a disability, I'll offer to open the door for them. But I always encourage kindness because there may be another day where I'm not feeling well. There may be another day where I have a load on my shoulders or anything else where I may need someone to open the door. But you don't want to discourage anybody from being kind.
Right. Now I have 2 phases to this personally. When I first got hurt, and when I grew into my maturity of my injury. When I first got hurt, it was all pride, right? I could do this. I could do this myself. Right. And I initially responded that way, not looking at the individual's their attitude or what they were trying to do for me. It was just personal pride. I could do this. You're right. And then I grew to realize that as a man, my mother taught me to open doors for females, to be polite, right? So I grew to understand that is a blessing. That is a gesture of blessing, rather than a gesture of taking my independence from me. Right. And so as I grew, I really I don't even say I could do it now. I only say thank you, right? Because that relationship at that point is eye to eye, and it's a contact, right? So if the dialogue goes further, and that sometimes happens, right? When we start having a conversation with that person, then maybe I'll tell them more. But I grew into that. At first, it was pride.
Yeah. And the longer you're in the wheelchair, don't that pride start to dwindle a little bit?
So fast. Like I won't say fast. I won't say fast for everybody, but for me, it went fast.
Me too.
And within that first year, like I started to get to the point where hold up. What? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this? Right? And I want you to be. And another thing, when I went from a manual chair to a power chair, I have more ability in the power chair than I did in the manual chair, but I'm even more, I guess the word relaxed would be the best word, because I don't expect anything. I'm just receiving it.
Right. Is there an element? I've heard this more in Dwight. Is there some element of I'm so limited in what I can do that I want to do the few things I can do myself? Is any part of it like well, one thing that I can do is use my arms to open this door. So I kind of want to do that myself. Not that you'd ever be impolite and say, you know, no, let
Yes,
me do that. But is that part of it? Is that why, you know?
yes, most definitely. I think that's that's just an internal thing, but yes, I think that's it's natural to feel that way.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, when I'm in that situation, I just try to be as polite as I can be.
Yeah.
So I do it, and I let people know. I don't say it in a rude way. I just say thank you, but I have this. Can I open a door for you? You know, that sort of thing. So that's me.
And my reality now, because I went from a para to a quad, I am even more conscious of the fact of the things that I can't do. So I really want to do the things I can do for me, right? So the question you said is very, very directed to me. I'll say, because when I look at the reality of, like, for instance, when I was in the hospital, my nurses were trying to feed me, and I could barely move my arms, and it hurt to move my arms, but I would rather be in pain feeding myself
Mm-hmm.
because that's what I could do, right?
Yeah.
Dan, do you have? I'm sure you have an interesting take on this one.
Well, I think that was an insightful question, Elise. Yeah, I think it's hard to explain when you lose independence in ways, how important what independence you do have becomes. And that was something I think I'm still growing into, just for our audience. And just to be clear, I'm the young one here in terms of disability. I'm 4.5 years into my journey. Dwight, you are 17?
I'm going on 16.
16, and Antonio?
24.
Antonio
24.
just had an anniversary.
Yep, February 6th.
Yeah, so you're coming up on a quarter century. So, you
Say it
know,
like that.
and not bad for a guy 22. And so I think that I'm way behind on their learning curve. And there's a difference. I am, and watching Antonio this last year, move to less and less independence, or more dependence, as you've done your surgery and lost a little bit of action in your arm and fingers in particularly. I'm what might be called by a layman a complete quad. So paraplegics, people, I didn't understand the difference before my accident. Paraplegic is the loss of the use of your legs. Quadriplegic is the loss of legs and arms. And so that's obviously para, two legs, and then quad is 2 legs and 2 arms. I don't have any use. I can't move my arms. Literally, I am a head sitting on a bag of potatoes. And so everything I do is from the neck up. That's why you're looking at this box in front of me. This is my mouse stick. This is my joystick, and I have what's called a sip and puff in it that I blow in to left click, I suck in to right click. So I manage my computer with my mouth. Everything I do, I have to do with my head. My particular wheelchair, I have to control with my head. I can't control with my hands. So my injury requires a much higher level of dependence. So we have 2 questions on the table. Let me answer the second one first. So yes, I am very aware that I want to be able to do what I can do. That actually manifests in other ways, which is probably another video, which is then please respect the things that I can do mentally, and my desires are actually more important to me than they were before. Right. Because before, if I wanted to do something, I could just go do it. Now I have to depend on people to understand it and value it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't understand and value it, I just kind of have to let that desire go or fight for it. And so then you're always having to choose, what fight do you want to fight? So we'll make that another video some other day, because I think it's an interesting question. How do you address the dependence issue? And that gets really, really deep, and probably would be a great topic for able-bodied people to hear and understand. But it's really an important one for caregivers, families, friends, people who are interacting with the disabled community. So to answer the first question is really informed by that second question, which I appreciated Elise asking. I can't go through a door. I have to have someone open a door. And so the irony is that I'm discovering how ignorant I was of my own community before I became part of the community, which is, I can't tell you how many times I've called ahead and said, look, I'll need some help getting in. And they will say, what do you anticipate them to say? We are handicapped accessible. And there's a handicap button on the door. Just push that and it will open the door for you.
You anticipate that?
No, I'm just saying, I've called government buildings and I've explained, look, I'm disabled. I'm going to need some help. And, I just try to warn people. I've learned I can go with an attitude and then be mad that I encounter what I've learned to expect, or I can try to call ahead and anticipate that. And so they'll literally say, and so sometimes if I'm ornery or if I'm feeling secure, I'll just go, thank you. And then I'll ride up to the door and sit there. Yeah, there's not a thing I can do. I don't have hands. I don't have fingers.
I can't press that button.
I can't press that button. I can't tell you how many times Alexa just goes, you can't do this with your voice. If you'll just hit this one button, you can use your voice. Well, I'm dead in the water at that point. I don't have any use. Even there are many quads that can at least push something because they have action with their wrist or their arm. So I am very dependent on people helping me in many situations. I have a doctor I go to monthly, and it's become a game to me where I will wait outside the elevator till someone offers to help me. So I'm just sitting there in a chair, and I'll have doctors and nurses getting off and on the elevator for 5, 6, 8 minutes. The longest I sat was 10 minutes. And I probably about 12 loads of elevators. Now, I had time and I was feeling fairly secure and I was enjoying being ornery. There are other times that I'm insecure and I really don't like asking. I already feel like I am a Martian walking through the building. And I already know that people don't look at you. They avert their eyes away. As soon as they see it out of the corner of their eye, they don't look. You're already an anomaly to their normal world. And one of my strengths and weaknesses is that I have a pretty good sense of perspective. So I can kind of anticipate what people are thinking and feeling. That really helps me in my consultancy and my practice and what I do and working and coaching people, but it really hurts me when my insecurity levels are high. And so you already feel frustrated that you're consciously invisible. People don't know you exist, but then when they see you, they avert away because they don't know what to say. So all of that plays in. So I've been thinking a lot about this question as I knew we were going to be asked this question. And I always try to give people tools. And so I think the way I would answer it is this. Dwight gave a wonderful answer. Kindness goes a long way.
Yes.
I think there is a humility. I've told y'all before, I'm embarrassed. I was a pastor for years. I'm embarrassed that sometimes I approach you. I didn't mean to. It was not intentional, but it was nonetheless real, where I approach people a bit condescending. Again, it was not until I was honestly trying to show sympathy. I was trying to show a willingness to enter their world. I have fortunately never been made fun of for that. So
Mhm.
apparently I met either secure or mature people who didn't go, you idiot, why are you, so, and maybe they gave me credit for my sincerity. Sincerity doesn't always mean right. And so I think sincerity goes a long way with that kindness.
Mhm.
So the introduction might be, look, I don't want to be offensive, but I sure would like to help. Would it be helpful if I opened the door? I think by acknowledging, look, I don't know how to be a help here.
Right.
I don't quite know, but
Most people don't.
yeah. And I appreciate when people are honest and just say, look, I'd like to help. I don't quite know how. Would it be helpful if I open the door? Could I get the elevator for you? And then I have a chance to
To
respond
respond. Right.
versus
Yes.
versus someone assume. Now again, Dwight's exactly right. There is there's a form of humility. Antonio hit on the humility issue. Dwight hit on the kindness issue, where hopefully the job of Antonio and Dwight and I are to talk to our community about being both humble and mature, right?
Right.
Learn to develop some a layer of skin, if you
Tough
will, a
skin.
layer of
Yeah.
toughness, and
Mhm.
that kindness and humility can go a long way. And I'm having to learn that. I just took a profile of for a thing I'm working with on the state, and I'm working with the Supreme Court justice and some other people on some training for hope. And so I took a profile where they did 25 character profiles, and then they ranked your 25 profiles. And my top 3 were perspective, leadership, and I can't remember the third one, memory or something. Anyway, whatever the third one was, my 25th was humility. So I'm very proud of the fact that humility was my last one, because it means I didn't lie on the test anywhere. I certainly
Right.
didn't have the halo effect. And so I think that I have to deal with Antonio's word pride and Dwight's word on kindness. So when you're approaching someone where you're like, oh my gosh, am I going to get a kind Dwight and a humble Antonio, or an ornery, arrogant, insecure person with mother issues? And Dan, which one am I going to hit? And I think that the deference of that is pretty powerful. Look, I I really would like to help, and I don't want to be offensive, but I think even different, saying I really appreciate, watching you wrestle with that. People are always trying to open conversations. I say people are always. There are times that people open conversations, and sometimes they seem to say the right thing, and sometimes they'll hit me at the wrong time.
Mhm.
I may be coming out of a bad doctor's appointment, and I can't tell you how many times I've been in an elevator. Somebody say, "Man, that's a cool chair. I wish I had one."
Oh.
And I'm like, I would, my comeback line is now this: I don't think you want the cost of admission.
That's a good comeback line.
And
Yeah.
That's
I
so
said,
much nicer than I would have been.
well, I can't repeat with some of my early ones.
I know.
I'm actually not a verbal. I don't tend to attack people verbally, but it'll shut me down inside in an unhealthy way
Yeah.
if I'm not careful.
Yeah.
Can
Because
I
I
ask a
have
quick question? I'm sorry.
no, please interrupt. I don't ever end. I just quit.
Well, this is just because when I speak, it's not coming up, and I was trying to see if it's something I'm doing wrong. Um,
No, we're hearing
Hear
you
you?
very clear.
okay, I'm just talking about on the screen, like when I speak.
Oh, it's not lighting up.
right, like you
Yeah.
came up right there.
Yeah.
You're lighting up on my
You're
screen.
lighting up for me.
Okay,
Okay, let's just.
so Antonio,
I
if
apologize.
you'll go up in the top right corner, there's a word that says view.
Mm-hmm.
Hit that, and you have a choice of gallery or speaker. Hit gallery. Do you
Thank
see
you.
all 4 of us now?
I see all 4.
Yeah.
Now you will see the box light up of the speaker.
Okay, so I feel better now. I feel like I was okay. Thank you. I apologize.
No, no
Feel
problem.
like
No,
a
it's a small technological thing that can be very helpful. I've just learned to put it on speaker view because of that very reason. I start getting distracted by who's coming up on the screen.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I mean
okay. I was
gallery
like,
view.
oh,
Sorry.
I was distracted because I wasn't coming up when I was talking. I'm thinking, okay, did I just really miss that opportunity?
Yeah.
But
No,
okay, sorry
we've
about
been
that.
hearing you've done a great job. So no, I apologize. I don't mean to ramble on like that, but I just think if there's
No,
a
it's
way
fine.
to just distill it down to, I think how people approach can really matter.
Yeah.
And even finding someone and saying to them, look, I'm uncomfortable approaching someone in a chair. You know, can you help me with a couple of tools on that? I'm always appreciative of someone who just says, look, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
I'd love to help.
Well, and the question is framed around opening a door, but this could extend to any number of situations where you might really need help. There might not be a ramp and you might need to be lifted into a building. You might, the elevate, you might need to be lifted upstairs. It's not just as simple as, can I open the door for you?
Right.
There might actually need to be a full dialogue, like, hey man, it looks like you really need some help. I don't know how to help you. I don't want to hurt you. I don't want to offend you, but I see that you need help. Can we work together and let me get you up this ramp or whatever,
What you just said is perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what to do, but
Yeah.
I feel like I want to help you. One of the things that was irritating for me and that I had to learn when I was in a manual chair is when I'm getting in my car at Walmart, someone would just come up and grab my chair and try to put it in for me, right? And again, when I first got hurt, I would almost get not offended, but want to show them, oh, I can do this,
yeah.
right? I don't need you. But then I learned now that I would say, excuse me, let me show you how I do it. And
yeah,
I will have a conversation while I'm getting it done. Me and that person are dialoguing. But I love the way you said it when you say, excuse me, it looks like you need some help. I don't know how to help you, but I really have the urge to help you.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think I think the way you responded, Antonio, might have been a little softer, which is instead of even saying, I see you need help, instead of saying, I see you need help, I think the way you said it was, I would like to help if there's any way, if you could tell me how.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I may not need help. I mean,
it might look like I need help.
Exactly.
That's just how I look. Yeah.
Dwight can whip around on curbs, and he's got the strength and he's got the chair to wheelie up and maybe get up on things. I'm 700 pounds in my power chair.
Yeah.
And so there's no lifting me. There's no getting over a curb. If that lip is larger than an inch, I can't get over it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm dead in the water. So yeah, I think the question is, I see you. I don't know how to help, but I would like to, if you could tell me how, I would love to help.
And a wheelchair user. Oh, go ahead, Dwight.
Oh, I was just saying, I just think a large part of the population, that's how they feel. I mean, a lot of them mean well and actually want to help. They just don't know how to go about doing things.
Right.
And what in our community, I just think we're too easily offended.
Right.
We're way too easily offended. We're way too sensitive when it comes to a lot of things. And I just think, and my biggest fear is not being kind to someone when they're offering to help. And then that person meets someone else that may need the help, and they're less motivated to help.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
But that brings up a whole other issue, Dwight, and that's this. The people who have listened this long, okay, but the people who went past the first 60 seconds and have engaged, it matters to them on some level.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're this far into the video, let me stop and say thank you.
Thank you.
No small thing that you care. Secondly, I want you to understand that sometimes we do have bad days. There are days that we're not real kind, and we feel bad about it after we get home.
Mm.
You know, on the days where I don't respond right, I kind of feel bad. And I've appreciated people who have been willing to say, you know what, they may not have acted really good, but I certainly think they've got a little bit tougher challenges than I may be facing today.
Right.
And I've had people just be that kind, and they just kind of give me the benefit of the doubt. So I think when you're approaching someone like this, I do understand. Again, I keep reiterating, I understand people don't know what to do. I didn't either. And so I try to be patient with that.
I really want to grab on to what Dwight said about our community, and a lot of times our community, we isolate ourselves, one, and then we respond. And you said again, we respond, or our attitude is funky, right? I'm just going to use the word funky, and I think the way I approach everything is a teaching opportunity, because here's someone who at least have the at least trying, right? At least they are trying, and for that, for me, that's very encouraging, and it feels like I'm building an army, right? When I can educate this one, and for me, if you notice, I'm a talker, so I don't have a problem with dialoguing with that person, and hopefully making them a little bit more comfortable with our community, because the reality for us is we're the minority, right? And very few times are there individuals that have personal, relationships with someone in a wheelchair, right?
Well, I think, and if this were a video for our community, that's a great warning. I think what our video is the people who are unfamiliar and trying to figure out how to relate to it. And that's why I think some of what y'all were saying was so important. Is I would love myself and my community to not be as defensive, but I'm telling you, there's days you just are.
Yeah.
Don't want to be in this chair.
I think that's a great point. To get a great spot to go to the next question.
So let's ask the next question, which I think is really important. And I think a lot of people, just like in the first question, people really mean well. No one comes at a question trying to offend, but a lot of times it's really easy to say the wrong thing. So what are some things that you wish we would stop doing or stop asking?
Although I'm not sensitive and I'm not easily offended, there are some things that I don't particularly like.
Let's hear it.
I just wish people would not try so hard. I like for people to just be natural. You can, and a lot of us, we can tell when someone is uncomfortable, and some people seem so uncomfortable because they fear saying something or doing something the wrong way. I just want people to understand that it's okay to approach me in the same way you would approach anybody else, whether they have a disability or not. The bottom line for me is I want people to be themselves. You don't need to do all the extra stuff to appeal to us. It can come across weird. Another thing, and this is a big one for me, is that people need to understand that our wheelchairs, they're extensions of our bodies. It's a lifeline. With that in mind, don't assume it's okay to rest on our wheelchairs. Don't assume it's okay to do things like that. And so those are the things that I wish people would stop doing.
Yeah.
When it comes to asking, I can talk about anything. So I don't mind anybody asking me any type of question.
So it sounds like people are trying so hard to do the right thing that they are doing the wrong thing.
That happens a
Very.
lot. It
Yeah.
comes across very weird.
Yeah,
For example,
it's not natural, and you can tell.
Right. For
Yeah.
example, someone kneeling down to talk to me. That's one of
Right.
the things that comes across very weird. Like you're kneeling down. Oh, you don't have to do all that.
Okay, that's great. That's very helpful.
For me, I am very much the same. I don't have a whole lot of things that are uncomfortable. Okay, but I guess for me, and maybe no one else experiences this, but I could be in somewhere like the grocery store or Walmart, and someone will come up and put hands on me and want to pray for my healing, and want to just have and it will be a very, very uncomfortable moment for myself because I don't know this person, and they're getting very, people can be very touchy,
Yes.
right? And they're praying, and now we're in the middle of Walmart in the aisle, and they're praying for me and they're touching me, and this, I want you to heal him. I am a very spiritual person. And so I cannot disturb that moment, but it's a very uncomfortable and strange emotion and feeling for someone to just in the middle of the aisle, just come up and just start wanting to do healing hands on you.
Right.
I don't know if you've ever experienced that, but that's so uncomfortable.
Well,
I've
and not
experienced it a
every
lot.
wheelchair user is a religious wheelchair user, so they may really not appreciate that.
Yeah.
That might really make them uncomfortable. And yeah, let's just not put our hands on people in the grocery store. How about that? Let's just not do that. Let's just, as a blanket statement, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Okay.
I'm a spiritual person, and that's happened to
Right.
me on a lot of different occasions.
And you still
But it's
don't want
like-
that.
But I'm so I don't want to offend anybody at the
Right.
same time. Like, how do you tell someone
Right.
they can
How do
pray
you
for you?
stop that?
No,
Like,
I think
how do you tell
I think
somebody
once it
that?
starts, you can't
Pray
stop
for
it.
me. Okay, pray for me. Don't lay hands on me. Like I can't do that. Like it just,
No.
it just nothing in me in that moment of, because for me that faith is, I don't want to break that faith. And I've had a moment. Listen to me. I had a moment where the daddy and the son, and we're about 45 minutes into this, and we're in the grocery store. And the son is looking at me like I want him to stop too. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah. But see,
Mississippi for you.
I've always had the mindset when it comes to that in particular, because I'll see someone and want to pray for them, but I don't necessarily have to go and put hands on those people. I just pray for them in my own way.
Right.
I
In
pray
your
for the
head.
people. They don't have to know that I'm praying for
there
them.
you go.
Right. It doesn't have to be so performative.
Yes, but that goes back to my thing of trying too hard.
Right. Woo.
Yeah.
That is.
But and that,
You're
and I
right,
don't-
Antonio. You can't stop them. You just gotta.
what can you do? What do you say? Don't pray for me?
Yeah.
Like, and then in the middle of the prayer is going 5, 10, 15 minutes. In the middle of the prayer, you're going to say, stop praying. I need to go. What do you do with that? How do you do that?
sermon.
Just in it.
The whole sermon.
It is, and that's I'm so glad somebody else experienced that.
Yeah, basically it's just a personal space sort of thing.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And the location, like we're in the middle of the aisle. Like, do we have to? We can have. You know what? My church is such. I would love for you to come by. I don't even mind that conversation.
Oh, they're recruiting.
I have had, when I won't use the word recruiting, I'm just going to go back to the prayers. That's what is uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable to be where you can't stop them, and you don't know how to tell them this is uncomfortable, and then the atmosphere of it's just a strange feeling.
It is. In the right context, that can be an extremely powerful moment if you're wanting that, and if you're a part of it, and if you're not in the grocery store and you're not in public. But being ambushed with that is not really.
I don't mind them asking me a question if they can pray, but ask the question first. Ask the question first, because if you're in the middle of Walmart, it could be the attention that you're going to get from a 15-minute prayer.
I did hear, and even the question, walking up to me and saying, hey, sir, I saw you in the wheelchair, and I just want to lay hands on you and pray for you. Do you mind? How do I say no?
You
Because
really
of my
are so
faith,
uncomfortable. Yeah.
Right? Because of my faith and how I feel, I don't want to, and I feel like I'm blocking their view of God. That right? If I say no, I don't want you to pray for me right now. I'm in the middle of going to get some underwear.
Yes, that's right.
I don't know how to do that. I just don't know how to do it.
Wow, I gotta poke that image out of my mind's eye.
But I'm so glad I'm not the only one, because you would be so surprised how often that happens. Right? You'd be so surprised.
My most recent was at a church reunion for my first church, and we had several hundred people there, and I had this long line waiting to come speak to me. And this guy came up, he and his wife, and they did that. They got down their knees, put their hands on my legs, prayed for me, and then after they got through, they stood up and said, well, God's done his part, we've done our part, now you need to do your part.
Oh, I've heard that sentence before.
And so what's your part supposed to be?
What is your part?
Faith.
Well, that's to believe, to have faith, to get up and walk. And so, but my daughter,
that's what they're saying, right?
Who knew it was that easy?
Oh, absolutely. That's what they're saying. Yeah, I'm quasi charismatic, so I get it, understand it. I'm not, charismatics don't claim me. And evangelicals are nervous around me. So I get it, I understand it. But I'm not a theological charismatic, and I don't, this isn't about all that. So I do understand it and I get it, and it's extremely uncomfortable and even offensive. But I'll say it's obvious throughout this hour we've been talking that I'm kind of the jackass of the group. So you guys are all so kind. Y'all are all so kind and have this kind of modicum of graciousness, and I just call people idiots. But I'll say this, and I would go back, and I just want to comment on two things, and of course trusting Elise to edit it and put it in a format that'll work, and taking stuff out that's inappropriate. But I think one of the challenges, Dwight, and there's three things that I kind of wanted to comment on. I was trying to let you guys finish out your thoughts. First of all, is I think, and I'm trying to remember, the point of the video is to give people tools. And so I think that when I'm processing, and let me come back to that. Let me just finish this. My daughter said something very insightful to me after about the 50th person had prayed for us and laid hands on us and told us they were praying, and they'd had a vision, they'd had a dream, they'd seen me walking, they had seen me preaching. When I used to speak, I used my hands a lot. I walked around the stage a lot. I was very animated. And so this, I just saw that, and and so she said to me one day, Dad, does that put a lot of pressure on you to get healed? And I said, yeah, wow. I've gotten to where I don't even want to get healed for me. I want to get healed for them. It's like, I feel like I've got to perform for their expectation, because I suddenly feel responsible for their faith. It's a strange position to be in. I was aware that I felt pressure. It took my 21-year-old, 22-year-old daughter to put it in language.
Right.
And I said, honey, that's a great way to put it. It's pressure to get healed. It's like she and I have always been very close on the emotive side. Like when she and I get each other, I'm highly emotional. I feel very deeply. I feel very deeply. Everything is, I'm the hopeless romantic. I'm the everything I feel. I cry at commercials. So I'm that guy. And so I am aware of that, and I feel that pressure, and I feel that need to hold people up. Back to yours, and I don't know how to address this, Dwight, because I really got so much respect for you guys, and I know that I'm behind the curve. I know this is so new, and the longer I'm in it, the shorter it feels like I'm in it.
That's
It's
a
like,
great way to say it.
it's like learning, you meet someone that's been in it. I had the privilege of finding out, I haven't met him yet. You probably know him, Dwight. I can't remember his name, but he's a lawyer in Hattiesburg who's been in a chair forever.
I'm sure I do.
And I met one of his close family members the other day, and I'm begging to meet with him because he's gone through high school, college, got his law degree, and is practicing. He's in his mid 40s now, so he's been at 30 something years. And I'm like, that's the guy. I need to talk to him, because the longer I go, the more I don't know, the more I realize this is a massive invisible community. It's just massive. And there's lots of reasons it's invisible. And I talked to you two guys about that in our race discussion, that I would never claim to understand the pain and journey of my African American brothers and sisters. But I do understand for the first time when my friends would say to me, Dan, this country was not built for me. And that was always, I didn't know, I thought, well, that's kind of a strange. And I remember when Tom Skinner, the great Black evangelist from Washington, D.C., said that to me back in the early 90s for the first time. And it rang true, but I still didn't understand. You know how your spirit goes, boy, that's right, but you don't know how to explain it. And I think that's the closest I can come to going, this city's not built for me. This shopping center is not built for me. And when they say to me it's handicapped accessible, that doesn't always answer my questions. So when I go to a hotel, I have to have a bed that has no platform under it, because my wife has to use a lift to get me out of my chair, and then the lift has to go under the bed. And most hotel beds have a board. And I can't use it. And so we will call ahead and we will say, can you please have someone go check and see? And they'll go, well, it's handicapped accessible. Yeah, it's fine. And I'll say, well, and then I have to explain the whole thing. And that's fine. I've trained my assistant to do it. Well, look, I have a lift. It's about 5 inches tall. It has to go under the bed. If it doesn't go under the bed, I can't get in the bed, and it becomes a useless bed to me. Could you have someone check? And they'll say, hang on just a minute, elevator music for 3 to 8 minutes, come back. I checked with my manager. They assured me that it was fine. And has anyone gone down there and looked? I need someone to put eyes on it, because until you're in that situation, you think that ADA means all bases are covered.
No, not at all.
And ADA does not mean all bases are covered. It means that you've done as little as you had to not be sued.
Yep.
And I'm not mad about, I don't even have the energy to be mad about that.
Right.
I just need to know if I can get my damn lift under the bed. That's all I'm asking. I'm not trying to sue you. I don't want to have a debate about ADA with you. I don't want you to tell me that y'all are ADA compliant, because that means you have a 3 foot wide entrance on your parking, which doesn't help me at all. I'll still have to park at the end of the park, And again, I've been in this long enough to know you have to choose where to spend your emotion. So all of that's a long explanation to say, when I hear you say, how did you answer that question? Ask me the question again, the second question we were addressing, Elise.
It was,
on your sheet.
What do you wish we would stop doing, stop asking?
And so I think, what was your initial answer, Dwight? Don't assume.
My biggest thing, to be just to simplify assumptions.
To quit trying so hard. Trying so hard.
Making assumptions. Making assumptions.
And don't lean on my wheelchair.
And don't lean on my wheelchair. So I think what I wanted to go back to on that, and I know all this has to be edited out, and we're talking about, some of this may be put into another clip somewhere. You know what I'm saying? All of this, there's all kinds of footage that if documented right can become resource in the future. I think to go back to my first question, and I don't know, again, I'm trying to help people who don't know. And my first answer was, I appreciate you trying. I've always tried to give deference to sincerity. And this is so hard to judge. If I feel like you're honestly trying, it goes a long way with me. It's like, if you're saying something stupid, even if I've just learned as one of my tools as a pastor I had to learn was, if I'll just be honest, if I'll just say, look, I don't know what to ask, I don't know what to say, don't know how to help. He said, well, and so the question is, what do you wish we would quit doing? I guess my answer would be, I don't mind you trying hard if you don't try hard assuming you already know what I need.
Yes.
Okay.
And so, which goes back to your first one about assumption, don't assume. And that's why I think you almost disarm me when you say, look, I don't know how to help you. I don't want to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing, but I'd love to be help if I could. That's a lot of words to say, and we're all busy. And so I think most of us, when I sense that someone stops their world for me, that's very different to me. Yeah. It's like, it's very easy. You actually humble me. You slay me when you stop your world for 30 seconds. And so I think what I'd modulate on Dwight's answer is, quit trying so hard to find an easy way to address me.
Yes.
I if you're honestly trying, somehow you win me.
You win.
But when I feel like you're trying to find the shortcut, when you're trying to find the cliff notes to this, I am as complex as Dwight is, and Dwight's as complex as Antonio is. And what works for Dwight in a particular situation is not going to work for Antonio in another situation. There is no cheat sheet.
Yes.
So to me, sincerity and humility slays me. When you say, I'm not sure what to do, or, hey, I try not to be mad when people say, one of my favorite questions is, how are you making that chair go? Because people can't figure it out, because I'm doing it all with these little knobs on my head that I've learned. You don't really even notice me. It just looks like I've got a little twitch because I'm doing this all the time, and I'm driving my chair. And I love that, because it tells me they're looking at me trying to figure it out, and they're humble enough to go, I can't figure it out. How are you doing
and
that?
I'm interested enough to want to ask you. I want to know how you're doing that.
Very good. I hadn't thought about that one too. I also, it's just humble enough to say, I don't know. And in some way they're saying, I'm impressed.
Right.
So I feel, okay, well, thank you for acknowledging that I've got at least one skill and I can drive a freaking chair. So there's sincerity, humility. You almost can't go wrong. You could say, you're probably the ugliest quad I've ever met, but I sure would like to help you. It's like I can do something with that.
Yeah. Right.
But when you're trying so hard to look like it's like, guys, and again, I'm, as a white man, I'm already kind of somewhat siloed, but having worked in race reconciliation for 35 years, there's some things I've learned. You don't start a conversation with a black man by saying, hey, Dwight, what's up?
What's up?
Yeah.
What's up?
Just try so just and that goes.
Man, I tell you what, one of my best friends is black. I sure would like to hang out with you sometime. I mean, there's things that I can do.
Why say that? Why start with that?
And there that what
Unnatural.
I may be misreading your answer to White, but I think I don't mind you trying too hard if you're trying with humility and deference and sincerity.
Okay,
But-
now
but
this
if
is
you're-
what
But if you're coming to me, and I love your word assumption, if you're coming with a bunch of assumptions, number one, I don't know what those assumptions are. Number two,
They can't help it.
they may very well be wrong, and certainly not related to me. So I'll
Okay.
stop there and let you clean
Well,
all
this-
that up for me.
Well, I think you make a good point. Now, I don't mind someone offering to help in any type of way. But what I meant by trying so hard is that some people become aggressively unnatural with their,
Yes.
especially with their assumptions. For example, I was in a place where someone came and I was in the public. I was getting ready to go to, and this wasn't too long ago. I was out for the first time. Really hadn't left the home because of COVID, but I was out for the first time in a while, and I was going into the grocery store, and it was a short incline to where I was going because I parked so far away from the door. So there was a short incline to get to the door. So someone just assumed that I would be okay with them rushing to my aid, grabbing my wheelchair and pushing me up into the store without me letting them know that would be okay. You know, just grab me and start pushing me like, and I said, no, I'm fine. No, I got you, sir. I got you, sir. Just relax. Just relax. You know, just people just trying so hard.
Aggressive.
But if they use your advice and they're, they ask and different things like that, then it will be fine. But when you aggressively do unnatural things,
Well, that's a good way to, I like that. I like that adjective, that adverbial adjective there, at aggressively, assumptive.
yes, that's what I mean by trying too hard.
Yeah, I agree with that. One of my favorite stories, and you told a version of it in another setting just now, was when you were speaking somewhere, and before you said anything, they grabbed you and your wheelchair and just carried you up to another part of the building, and you're like,
yes, and people don't want to hear you say
no, stop.
They
Put me down.
While you're saying I'm okay, don't do this, they're still grabbing you. Oh no, we got you. They think they're still doing the right thing, even when you tell them you're uncomfortable with it.
And I like what you said, Dan. When you say that there's a limit to what you should do, and well, how can I put it? I don't mind, but the assumptive thought that you know what is best and you know how to do this, and you not only do you assume that, but you react and respond so confident that you don't even listen.
yeah, that's good.
Yes, don't even
And I
listen.
think another way to put it is this, and here you said, what is it you don't like? And this, I hadn't even thought about this till this conversation, which is why I like a free form. I like us kind of talking. Another one is like this, is when the assumption flows because they've known somebody. So they'll come and they'll start lifting you or pushing your chair and saying, I had a grandmother with Alzheimer's one time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And you're like, well, there's about 17 assumptions wrong with that statement.
Right.
I'm not a grandmother. I don't have Alzheimer's. I don't, in other words, there's this kind of, I'm telling you why I'm helping you, and it makes me an expert in this.
Yes,
that is a great point.
It's very frustrating.
I'll tell you something that happened back to my, just being aggressive. You know, I've had someone to rush to try to push me in somewhere, and that goes back to what I was saying about my personal space in my wheelchair, resting on the wheelchair, etc. Someone came and started pushing me, and I'm always aware when I'm pushing myself to look for imperfections in concrete, imperfections on the sidewalk. And so someone started pushing me, and they were going really fast, and I'm saying, sir, no. And then all of a sudden, my wheel catches something on the concrete, and I went flying out of my wheelchair.
Oh my gosh.
I've had that.
So, but they would not.
That's very interesting. And here's the irony. This shows you how different we are. I dare you to try to push my chair. Because all I have to do is take my head off there, and you ain't going nowhere. You're going to trip on yourself because that thing's going to stop, and you're not going to be able to do a thing with it. Now, I have had, yes, that is such a great point. And I love that illustration. I appreciate you pointing that out because, again, people can be playful with you or even try to be helpful. And it's a little bit, the best way I can put it is this. You may think it's funny to pat the backside of your secretary's behind. But you would, if you have a modicum of intelligence, you wouldn't do that. And I've never thought about this, Dwight, till you said this, because I don't quite feel it the same way. I think it's a little different for me. I think the visceral thing where you are using your hands with your chair but the whole idea, this is just a fascinating thought. This wheelchair is an extension of me. You are touching me. You are touching me when you're touching this wheelchair. That's just a fascinating. I have to really sit on that a minute because that's a great insight. I had not thought of that. I think you, Antonio, probably feel that more than I do because again, I'm so new to this world that I still can get pretty ticked off. I'd really like to use the word pissed off, but I know we got to.
You can. It's okay.
I can still get really ticked off that I'm in the chair in the first place. That the chair to me is some days my friend, and some days I hate it. And it's a reminder of everything I'm not. So it's interesting when you think about the chair, which is why I think I get very uncomfortable and a little angry when people are trying to compliment, hey, I really like that chair. And there's really in all of its in a neutral way, that's not a bad statement. I like your chair. And so if I think about it as an extension of me, hey, I like your shoes. Hey, I like, man, those are great biceps. Those are, when people are commenting on something that they find positive, to me, it's a reminder I'm in a chair, right? So again, I'm the jackass of the trio here. I'm the guy that probably needs to find Jesus somewhere.
Dan, I also think there's a big jump between I like your chair and I wish I had one.
And there is a big difference, but I'm telling you,
because I wish I had one would piss me off as well.
Well, and it would, but I will say this, and this again, I'm not trying to be funny when I say this. I'm growing into it myself. I'm having to get comfortable with this world. So I think what makes this a great interview is that we're at different places and different perspectives. What makes it maybe a complicated one for the listener is that we are different places, and throw in somebody who was born this way.
Right.
And they're going to have a different respect. Throw a black woman in who is, at the historically bottom of the social rung, who's in a wheelchair. Right. And so now she's got a whole nother layer of emotional conundrum that she's dealing with. You know, there's so many dynamics to all this that I'm trying to think of general tools that people can use. And to me, it still comes back to sincerity and humility, that there are people that no matter what you do, there's going to be days that if you hit me on the wrong day, I'm not going to respond well. And I can only beg at that moment that you understand. You know, on those days, I can only hope that you get it, that I don't want to be here.
Mhm.
You know, and I may find joy in the journey. You know, I get around to White, and I really do wonder if I'm even saved. Because I see his post, and I see this joy, and I see this, and my days like that are much longer, and there's a whole lot longer strings of those. But then there's days where I just want to go back to bed and hope that tomorrow will be different. And so if you catch me at the doctor's office on that day, I'm going to be salty. I'm going to be, hopefully I'm mature enough in my walk as an individual and as a believer that I'm not going to say anything I regret, that hopefully I will use all my tools of discipline to respond correctly. But you might get me on that day. And if you get me on that day, I might be a little salty. And
So you said you use two tools. You said they need to be humility, and you said
sincerity.
and also have be able to forgive me, right? Uh,
And that's a good word. And that's not fair to people who may not have that skill or feel that that's important. But the people who are listening this far, I think do.
right.
I think if you've listened this far into the dialogue, you're listening because you get it and you care. And I would just say, if you're that mature, if you're this far in this interview and you care that much, I think I'm appealing to you, going, some days you're going to meet me on that day, and I can only beg your forgiveness before you see me.
I mean that with so much passion. When my reality has changed, right? My wife over 23 years had to do nothing to help me. Nothing to help me. I did all the cooking, I did all the driving, I did everything that needed to be done. And then all of a sudden I became dependent. And there's some days, I respond, and I don't mean to respond that way, but it's just
has nothing to do with her.
Right. And I just need you to understand, to please just forgive me, because it has nothing to do with you. That's the part I want you to understand.
Has nothing to do with you.
It has nothing to do with you.
My attitude has nothing to do with you.
And I pray
and really it has nothing to do with what you've done.
Nothing.
And even if what you did triggered it,
it was
matter. all it was a trigger. It could have been, you could have sneezed, you could have clipped your toenails, you could have asked me if I would have liked a massage. It doesn't, whatever the trigger was, the trigger, the hammer was already pulled on that gun, and it really didn't matter what pulled that trigger. It was set.
Just please forgive me. So I think those three, if you can use those three tools, I believe you can melt and help the individuals like us. I believe you are at the same time are going to help your community. I call it the able-bodied community, because you're going to talk to someone, your friend, your spouse, that you're going to have that dialogue about what you just went through. And what I pray is that when you leave my space, you leave with a positive energy, that that you came from that dialogue, right? And I think those three tools that we talked about, if you add forgiveness to it, please understand that this world we're in is so small, but it's so big at the same. But it's so small, and at any, you know, it's not like I'm gonna say at any moment. I'm just gonna say at my moment. At my moment, I could be, you know,
That's good. That's a good word.
you know, I could be. It could be almost offensive, and I just pray for your forgiveness.
And this is going to sound really arrogant, and I already know that. So I'm going to try to be.
Just like Nick Saban.
Thank you for preparing us.
I'm gonna protect my image by already warning that I know this is egotistical. I really don't want you, and you guys are going to understand what I'm saying, as just on the racial issue. I really don't want you, as an able-bodied person, to be an expert on my life.
You should not be.
And people, and one thing I'm learning is that people will try to explain me to me, and it can be very offensive. They don't mean to,
offensive.
But I'll have somebody who's been in the community as an instructor for a long time, or maybe they've been serving that community, and they'll tell me, oh, well, yeah, this is what you're going through, or yeah, this is what people like. And I listen to it and I think, okay, at what point am I being arrogant and going, look, they may know something I don't know and I need to listen and learn from them. And at what point do they need to go, look, it doesn't matter what all I know from a book or a training or a seminar or the letters behind my name. If I say to my daughter, and I was kidding with you earlier, Elise, but had we been serious, it could have been really offensive for me to go, well, you interrupted me because you're a woman. Well, no, you may have interrupted me because I'm pretty boring and you were trying to breathe life into the conversation. And so, sometimes we have to be real careful with that, but I'll have people who will interpret me to me. Mm-hmm. And it can be hard. It can be, I've been in even meetings in the Ark, or I'll be in meetings with Johnny and friends, and people who walk in on their two legs, holding their cup of coffee and eating a donut with the other hand, right, checking their text and emails throughout the meeting, go, oh yeah, well, here's what and I'm like, it's my experience. It's my journey. I am a highly empathetic person. I mean, I cry with anyone about anything, and maybe I'm just overdeveloped. I've got one ovary anyway, and so when that kicks in, I'm just done. And I don't mind that. I've been called a sissy by my brothers growing up. I was always taking in the lost animal, and people confuse my very direct personality with my empathy. They don't know what to do with it. And so I think sometimes, it's not been often in my life, but since the chair, I've thought much more, God, I just wish people had some empathy. I just wish I wish they could just go, look, I can't imagine. If you want to slay me, tell me I can't imagine.
Let me say this, we need to go.
Because I've actually got a meeting. Got a meeting starting in 30 seconds.
I saw some on Fox this morning, and they were talking about how the Revolutionary War, how they had spies, and it was and how and they were talking about the spies, and then they said, because of those their sacrifice, no one should kneel at the national anthem. And that, to me, at that moment, I want to say
the whole point.
Right at that moment, I want to say, just please put yourself in my shoes. Yep. For one moment. Imagine just imagine what it is, and you telling me that peaceful protest.
They're not willing to do that. They're not willing.
You can't see that as a peaceful protest, but you can see that the spy against the Queen, against the King, against England, and fighting against England, and doing all of the what would be called evil if I was England. But you can't see peaceful protests. You can't put yourself in my shoes.
They can, they're not willing to. They can't.
The statement you made about, I just wish you would just put yourself,
Empathize, yes.
just one moment.
Dan,
right?
I love the don't explain me to me. I love that.
Not without my permission.
Right.
I think
Right.
that goes back to something that Dwight keeps saying and Antonio keeps referring to, which I've not thought about. Look, it's not that I don't want to know. Can I give you permission first? Can you at least look? I know I've got a lot to learn, and there's some things you can teach me. I get that, but can I give you permission before you speak to it?
I thought I knew what I was doing,
And
I
all
thought
that to say, because I've got to get off.
Yeah,
Antonio, you're bringing up a great point. One way you can empathize with people is think of ways that our world might be like yours. If you're a woman, if you're African American, if you're a foreigner, if you are, and you think, wait a minute, their world in disability is as unique as maybe something I've experienced.
Right?
Yeah, as something as I've experienced. What might be an area of my life that is similarly misunderstood? And I could take that. That's what empathy is.
Right.
It's going, okay, in this area of my life, I can understand why. And that's why I'm very, very careful in ever comparing myself to the African American experience, except to say, I get the phrase now. This country was not built
It's not
for
built
me.
for me.
And I go,
that
man,
is so encouraging and inspiring, but it's also the reality.
right.
Yes.
Well,
So,
I know Dan
guys,
has to jump.
I have got to
I
go.
will-
I'm already
I
late.
will edit this up, and I'm gonna throw together some bullet points that I'll send to y'all so that you can add to it.
Okay.
Bless y'all.
Thank you.
Love you
Thank
guys.
y'all.
Love you guys.
Are we
Bye-bye.
going to
Love
set so you'll set up a next one? Do we have some more?
Yes,
We've
I'll
got
do all that. I'll
okay.
send an email.
All right. Thank you, Elise. Bye-bye.
Have a
Bye,
great
y'all.
day.